Hi everyone, it's Leandra here from PaperArtsy and we're up to topic 10 on our 2015 blog challenge. And for the next 2 weeks the topic's all about bottles. And bottles, there's lots of different things that you can do with them. I've got an example here, although 2 of my bottles have gone missing. We tend to take these samples out and about a bit and obviously they've fallen off. But if I just talk a little bit about what I've done to some of these, and then I'm going to go on and show you some other examples, and I'm going to do a quick demo at the end to give you some ideas about what you might want to have a go at. These bottles have all been painted with Fresco chalk acrylic paint. You don't need to use an undercoat. You can paint with the chalk acrylic directly onto glass. Fresco chalk acrylics are really a one-size-fits-all paint, so they are a multi-surface paint. They can go onto fabric, plastic, glass, acrylic, any surface whatsoever, so you don't need an undercoat, and that's just the beauty of working with them. Straight onto there with a bit of cut and dry foam. Now on this bottle here in the centre, I will have dripped some glue down the side of the bottle and then sprinkled rusting powder, which you've seen us use before, the Crafty Notions rusting powder, and you just sprinkle it on there, tip off the excess, and then activate the rusting powder by spraying it with water. If you want to speed it up, you can put a little bit of acid into your water, so perhaps some lemon juice or a bit of vinegar, and then over a period of time, as long as you keep the rusting powder damp, then it will the iron filings will actually turn rusty. So that's quite a cool effect, because on a blue paint like this, which would have been Bora Bora, you get a really cool patina type effect. So rusting powder is something you might want to have a go at, and I know that some of the designers coming up in the next 2 weeks have got other patina effects or antiquing effects with paint onto their bottles. These other ones here have also been stamped, where you just roll the stamp onto an ink, which this one is a scripty stamp, so it's probably our favourite, Mini 61. And then tickled with a bit of treasure gold over the top. This one here has got more of a crackle effect going on. So yes, you can also use the 2-step crackle onto the glass. So the first coat would be colour A of your paint. Then you want a very thin layer of our crackle glaze. And then the second layer of paint will activate the crackle. So if you want a recap on that, you need to go and look at the YouTube video. Here's another example of bottles being used in more of an interior design type project. I will put a photograph of this whole project on the blog. It's a bit hard to fit in the shot on the camera, but again, little bottles have been used. These are all Tim Holtz type bottles and filled with different items, different objects, which just add some more interest. So this one's got some pen nibs in it, some little beads. That one's been painted on the outside and some words wrapped around it. And we've also got here a little one of Tim's little charmy things filled with something, and paint is actually inside that bottle. Here there's some sort of chain dangling down under the cork, and this one's got some more of that lovely ruler ribbon of Tim's in there as well. So lots of different things, but I really like lining up a few little bottles in a row. I think it's quite effective on all kinds of projects. You could do this in the niche of a canvas, you can do it on top of canvases. There's all kinds of ways that you can use these really tiny bottles. I think I've actually shown you this bottle before. It's a class we did at Artsy Crafts quite a few years ago, and we used grunge paper on the top and painted the bottles with the Fresco chalk acrylics. So this was just created using a couple of shades of blues, making it darker at the edges with cut and dry foam. Then we dried that and we stamped over the top and used a bit of pearl glaze to accent the flowers so that they just had a little bit of sparkle to make them stand out. So that was pretty straightforward and quite simple. The paint just went directly onto the bottle. It's a normal little glass bottle, and that's probably a project that was done quite a few years ago now, and it's stood the test of time, so that's quite good. The paint doesn't seem to scratch off. Other bottle ideas that I wanted to show you. So the simplest way is just painting the bottle and then stamping with script archival jet black. The easiest way to do that is to just ink up your stamp, lay the stamp flat on the table, and then sort of roll the bottle over the stamp. And if there's always going to be one direction facing outwards, then it doesn't matter if you end up with something like this on the back where there's a bit of a blank spot. Now that's quite cool. And then you can go on to decorate them. This is obviously fallen off a project because there's a big blob of glue on the back, but that's quite fun and easy way of decorating a bottle. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. I wanted to see if I could put grunge paste onto a bottle, and so I would never put grunge paste directly onto the glass because I kind of feel that being a thicker product, it's much more likely to just crack and fall off the glass. So what I did first is, and I don't know if the camera will be able to pick this up, but I actually put some matte medium onto a bottle first, and so it's just a clear thin glaze. You could use our matte glaze, would be fine, or if you've got a gel medium like Golden's gel, that would be fine. Anything that's matte, because matte gives it a little bit of a tooth. Even a clear gesso would work. So it takes it from this very shiny glass surface to a much more toothy, gritty surface. And that's what I did first, and then I came over the top of it with some grunge paste. Just sort of used a palette knife initially to put it on, and then sort of smoothed it out with my fingers. I rolled it across a stamp as well, and then I sprayed it with the Lindy's Stamp Gang. So I used a teal colour and a greeny colour. Dried that, and then came over the top with some Treasure Gold and Classic. And so the Treasure Gold just accentuates the texture. I tapped the grunge paste with my fingers in places to get that really cool texture, and in other places I just sort of actually put a bit of water on there to make it smoother. So when you can see here where the Classic Treasure Gold looks more like a gold nugget, it's because that section there I used my finger with water to smooth out the grunge paste, and it makes it really beautifully rounded and smooth, and when the Treasure Gold comes on top of that, it just looks fab. So that's that one. Now this is the one that I'm quite excited about, because it's something that I've seen on Pinterest for a while, where people paint the insides of the bottles, and that's what I'm going to demo to you in a minute. So for this particular one, I've used Snowflake, but I also sprayed some teal Lindy's Stamp Gang in there to tint the white paint, and that's how it's got a slightly marbled effect. It's not a really even blue colour. There's this sort of variegation in there, which I really like because it adds interest to the whole effect. But the cool thing about this is, because you've got the glass, shiny glass surface, it really makes it look like it's got an amazing glossy glaze finish. And you've painted the inside, so it just, all the paint dries on the inside of the bottle. I used a heat gun to speed it up, and it's a pretty cool effect. So that's a yes from me trying that one out. So let's show you how you can do this. I'm going to start with one of these bottles. It's quite a nice little size to demonstrate on. We have some of these bottles in the shop as well. I love these new little vials which Tim Holtz brought out this year. So they're quite a cute little size for all kinds of three-dimensional projects. And then these ones are a bit bigger, and you don't often see tall and skinny bottles like this. So those are quite cool, and they're a bit different too, and slightly less dimensional if you're looking for something that doesn't take up so much space on the project that you do. So both of those are on our website. So to paint the inside of the bottle, well, you can pour paint directly inside the bottle if you wish, but I kind of figure, to make life easier, if you spray a much looser version of the paint inside the bottle, then it just helps things along a bit. It's a bit like when we're making this sort of formulation. So you start with an empty 30ml spray bottle, and I usually put water in first and then add some white paint to it, the snowflake paint. But so that's how I've started, and it's a bit the same concept here. I want to put a thicker paint in here, but if I start with a loose paint inside the bottle, I think it's just going to make life a bit easier. So I'm spraying that in there, and it just adds a little bit of wetness, and it's going to allow things to travel around the bottle a bit. But you can see that it probably is too runny to use to paint the inside of the bottle on its own, because it sort of starts to reticulate and there's just too much water in there. But it gives a nice coating to everything. So if you start with that and then squirt a little bit of paint in there, and then that's just slightly thicker, but it allows it to move around the bottle, and so you start to get a cool painty covering. But it's different. I like how it differs in consistency. If you want it all to be really, really perfect, then perhaps you should just put some watery paint in there, but I don't want things to be really consistent. Right, now I'm going to add some colour. So I've got the Lindy's Stamp Gang spray, and this one's called Cheshire Cat Cherry. It has got some sparkle in there, which really I'm not bothered about. I just kind of want the colour. So if you add a little bit of that in and then twirl it, you start to get a more variegated effect. So that's a cool way to sort of mix up using your sprays and the paints at the same time. And just how much you mix it, how much you allow the paint to move around, depends on the variety you get of the sort of look on the outside of it. So that's where I've put the fully concentrated paint into the bottle. You can see that that's really just grabbed. And then the other areas are sort of the more watery thing. I could always put the lid on and give it a bit of a shake, see what happens. It's all, oh, that looks quite cool too. It starts to make it much more pastel. And of course, if you introduce another colour, like say some blue, you'll get a bit more of a purple thing going on. So you see, it's just about having a bit of a play. And I mean, I wanted to just do this because I wanted to see how the sprays worked with the paints. So that's why I sort of opted to go this way. And I was really quite keen to get a two-tone effect on the inside of the bottle. So that was my logic. But if you want things to be much more simplistic, then just stick with one colour and you'll get more that kind of an effect. Now if this mixes up together, obviously where the blue hits the pink, it will go much more purple. To dry it, what I did is I just kept rotating it and sort of allowed the excess paint to tip out of the bottle. And that also gives you a little bit of paint inside the lip. And then I just hit it with a heat gun. I actually hit the outside of the bottle first with a heat gun, and that heat hitting the glass sort of stops the paint or dries the paint inside the glass bottle, and then finally sort of hit the heat gun straight down the inside of the bottle as well. But I really like that. You can see how if you just sort of rotate it really slowly like I have been, it gives that really cool variegated effect. So it's a bit more random than just having one solid colour in there. So that's just one idea you might like to try with painting bottles. And there's so many, and it doesn't have to be the outside. You might decorate something really big. There's some fantastic examples that I've put up on the blog for this week's post. So do go and check that post out. And we hope that you'll have some fun with bottles and play along with us in the next 2 weeks. See you again next time. The challenge closes on June the 6th. Oh, it might be the 7th. It's a Sunday night. See you then.